Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about data objects and how to create them using JavaScript. A data object is a very simple object with only properties. There are no methods that are part of the data object. It's just a simple object used to facilitate the transportation of data. So instead of using an array, you can use a data object that actually has property names as opposed to just index numbers if you were using an array. So let's go ahead and create a data object. Like I said, it's very simple. We'll create one. This is using JavaScript. Class, let's call it food DO for food data object. And we have our constructor. And inside the constructor, we'll do our usual verification or confirmation that the actual object was instantiated. So console.log data object created. All we need inside the constructor are the properties that you want associated with this data object. So maybe for a food data object, there's some of the data related to food could be pizza. So we'll say this dot pizza equals cheese. And let's do drinks, this dot drinks. But instead of making this a string, why don't we make it an array of drinks? We'll have soda, comma, water, and then after that, let me put in my semicolon in there. Let's do another thing. Why don't we make a property called cost? Let's just say $100. This dot meat equals steak. So we have one food data object. It has 4 instance variables and 4 properties: the pizza, drinks, cost, and meat. Notice that the data type doesn't really matter. They could be strings, arrays, numbers. It really doesn't matter. The point is you're creating this food DO and using that to contain all your data instead of an array. Because if this was an array and I go food DO, just pretend this is an array, I would not know, well, what is sub 1 or sub 2? Is that the cheese? Is that the drinks? It's hard to identify. So making an actual object makes it a little easier to access the data that's inside of it. So let's go ahead and instantiate this so I can kind of prove that. So var, let's call it food DO equals new food DO. And let me go ahead and run it to make sure it instantiated correctly. So I'm going to go to my browser, run this, and it says data object created. All right, let's go back to our code. But now here comes the cool part. If I want to see what the pizza is, I can just do console log food DO and dot. And even if you're using an editor like WebStorm, you can see the properties that are associated with this food DO. We see cost, we see drinks, meat, and pizza. So instead of doing index-based notation or array access notation like this, we can actually access it by its name, fooddo.cost, and go ahead and run it. And you'll see the 100 down here at the screen. Let me clear that, run it again, and 100. And if we wanted to go through everything, what we could do, if we wanted to display all the properties of this food DO or this food data object, we could loop through all the contents. So for var, let's do P for property, and food DO, curly brace, and if I do a console log P and go ahead and run this, notice what gets outputted in the console. We got pizza, drinks, cost, and meat. This is kind of cool. So this iterator, this P variable, is looping through all the properties in the food DO object. It's not showing or reflecting the index numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. What if I wanted to see what the pizza is, like cheese, or what the drinks are, soda and water, or the cost, like the 100, the actual values of the properties? So what we can do here, instead of console logging P, which is the actual property, we could drill into food DO, so type in the actual variable reference and do bracket P and close it and go ahead and run it. And now you actually see the values: cheese, soda, water. That's the array, the 100 in the steak. The last thing I want to show you here using this for in loop is that, let's say we want to do both. I want to see the actual property name and right next to it the property value. So the first thing I'll console is P, which is just the property name, and then I'll put a little colon there, so space colon, oops. We'll do something like this. We'll do some concatenation. And as it spaces out so you can read it a little better. So and now in our console log, we're console logging P. P is this variable right here, which refers to the property name that is in food data object. So loop through all the properties in food DO. So that's what the P is. Now I want to see the actual value of the property, not the property name itself. So we drill in the food data object, the food DO, bracket P, and that'll show the actual value of that particular property. If we can't do this, that won't make any sense. So instead of using dot syntax to accomplish this, we're going to use array access notation and put the P there. And go ahead and run this, and we should see both. So there's pizza, cheese, drinks, the soda, and the water because it's an array, cost 100, and the meat is a steak. So that's pretty much it when it comes to a data object. Again, a data object is this part right here. It's a simple object that only contains public properties, and of course JavaScript. Everything is public, but it's just an object with properties. It's a better way to reference or maintain your data as opposed to something like an array. This is much easier to transport, and it's easier to drill in to access the individual data.